Good afternoon, everyone. This is Carmen Rojas with the Rojas Consulting Group and the Camel Jacket Chat. I do have the camel jacket on today. Today we are going to have kind of a different kind of a show. And so let me start by just kind of explaining what to expect for about the next hour. Today we have the unfortunate passing of Dr. Maya Angelou. And so throughout this show, I wanted to kind of sprinkle in some of the memories that we have from her, some bits and pieces of her work, so that we just pay tribute to this remarkable woman. And it really is truly coincidence that today we were planning to talk about authorship with Miss Charlotte Pierce. So we will be kind of sprinkling that in as a way of just paying tribute to her. But today the focus of the show was to talk about authorship, talk about, for those of you who are thinking about writing a book. I know I personally have had, fleeting thoughts of grandeur about writing a novel, or not a novel, but a book. And so I wanted to talk to Charlotte. She's honestly been on my personal list of people to talk to about the process and what do I need to know, and tell me all the details that that everybody is not talking about already. So that's what Charlotte is here to do, and she's posted some wonderful things into the comment in the event page. So if you're trying to follow along with some of the things that she's saying, I would encourage you to look at the stream there, and we'll be able to follow along. But I wanted to start. I'm going to let Charlotte introduce herself, and then we are going to get into it.
Okay. Well, I am an independent publisher in the Boston area, Arlington, Massachusetts, to be exact. And I have been a longtime member and board member of the Independent Publishers of New England. But I started my publishing, I started in Seattle, actually, with a magazine publishing. And I continued that in New York City after I took a publishing course at Radcliffe College. It's a summer course, sort of like, it's become the Columbia publishing course now, which is a lot more expensive than it was when I took it 30 some years ago. But so that's kind of been the information that I've used to develop my own publishing. I worked in magazines in New York for a while and then moved up here. And when I got engaged and married, I transferred my expertise into book publishing and freelancing. So I published 3 imprints with on print on demand. I have the Pedagogy Handbook, Pedagogy Books. It's alternative sort of education books. Giggle Quick Books, which is children's imprint, and DayTripper Books, which is sort of the flagship imprint, and it started my actual book publishing. So that's kind of where I'm coming from now. I'm the co-president of IPNE, and I just really love helping people get their publishing off the ground and bring their ideas to light. So
okay, well, here's something just to kind of get started with. And forgive me for playing stupid. I hope I don't come across as being as out of it as I may appear at times.
There are no stupid questions. This industry is changing so fast. I am not going to know everything, and you are not going to. You're expected to know everything right off the bat. So
sure. But what I wanted to just double check on is, and I think one of the confusing things about this is, what could you define, like, vocabulary for us? What is publishing? When you say that you published something, is that the same as you wrote it, or what is that?
No, I think publishing is more, you take responsibility for it. You take responsibility for it being correctly formatted, edited, presented. You consider it a business. You've researched the costs and potential income from your publishing operation. I mean, you can't. It's a loose word. That said, it is a flexible word, because you can publish a blog online today. You could be a publisher. But in the sense that I'm coming from, I think a publisher really takes delight in creating a polished product, and a book is you know, you have a responsibility to the reader not to like throw a bunch of errors in there so they stumble and lose the thread of what you're trying to say in the book, or
Right.
the author's trying to say in the book. I tend to I've gone to publish it from self-publishing or with a co-author to publishing other people's work. So
Okay. So just so I understand, so I'm the author. If I have a book that I think, people need to know about, then I would come to you to publish it after I've written it already?
yes, you could publish it yourself as a self-publisher. You could come to a book packager, like I do some of that, or a publishing coach, and they would coach you through the process of getting the ISBNs, getting it printed, getting an ebook version, all that stuff. It's very complicated, but so is driving a car. You know, it's just stuff you learn and then you do it again, and it's easier. But so print on demand, there are a lot of people go the ebook route. Only strictly because it's easier. You don't have to deal with messy things like paper and thickness of paper and number of pages, and there are downsides, of course, but I tend to, depending on the type of book, I'll print first and then do an ebook, because for me ebook production is more complicated, just because I'm an elderly person and print was my original, format. There weren't ebooks, 15 years ago or something? Is that when they started? 10 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, in terms of the history of the written word, ebooks are brand new.
Right. But if you're going to, there are different ways of going about it. And if you're a consultant, say, and you're creating a book about your niche, which may be social marketing, for example, you can go with a print on demand. It's a slightly higher per copy cost if you do print on demand, because that means that people on Amazon are putting in the orders. They're going to Lightning Source or CreateSpace or any number of printers that they farm those orders out to, and that book is being printed on demand. So in reality, they probably print 50 or 100 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have something. It may cost you $4 a copy, or depending on the number of pages. Again, I just printed one, the Pedagogy Handbook, which is 232 pages, but I think it is, no, 313 or something. But we did print on demand because we didn't want to sink thousands of dollars into a print run and have those books sitting. We have a global editorial board, so we wouldn't really know where to put them, to market them. So we're doing it that way, and then we'll do an ebook version. But some people do an ebook version and just get it out on Amazon, get the income coming in, and then you're in a better position to finance a print run where you can actually make more per copy than you can on, through a traditional printing order than you can on print on demand.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the margin is higher. Obviously, when we talk about, any kind of a manufacturing or something like that, if you put it in the way of something everyone can understand. If you make one pizza at a time, that costs more than if you could make 50 pizzas and then just kind of deal them out. That's kind of,
Yeah. My friend, my colleague on IPNI, Kitty Werner, had put together some figures, and, she just kind of like the typical paperback book, maybe a cost starting from scratch $1,000, depending on how many books for your own order for your own supply. The ebook, basically, if you do it all yourself, you're gonna pay a registration fee with the ebook distributor. Print on or traditional publishing, if you're going to order a print run of maybe 3,000, $10,000 to $20,000.
Wow.
So, you know, that's doing it right. That's getting a professional cover designer, buying your own ISBNs. That's one thing that I would recommend any self-publisher do, because it's like
what is an ISBN?
You know? It's like,
what is an ISBN?
It's an international book identifier. It's a 13-digit number that goes in the front of the book, and I used to know what it stands for. But the website is on your event page, myidentifiers.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's managed by a company called Bowker, and you go on, and in it, again, if you're easily intimidated by complicated websites,
mm-hmm.
It is a horrible website, but yeah, you've got it there. It's in the front of the book. It's like your Social Security number for your book, basically. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. It's a Social Security number for your book. I like that.
And it has that. I mean, don't give your Social Security number to someone else. You know, it's you go and buy those, because that will. It's like having your own domain name. You know, that is your property. And a lot of vanity presses and book packagers will kind of snow new authors by saying, "Oh yeah, I provide the ISBNs," but then they own them. You know, they own those ISBNs. You want to get that back again. I mean, then they control where it's distributed, what sort of information accompanies the book. It's called metadata that you put in on the myidentifiers.com when you get your ISBNs. Your metadata will make a lot of difference in how your book is distributed and found.
That's really interesting, you know, because we talk about, just to kind of give metaphors so that people kind of understand what we're talking about. You know, we did a show a little while back with Yvonne Hyman, and we were talking about, you know, who owns your URL for your website. Mm-hmm. And we talked about, you know, being able to, you know, that it's advisable for you as the business owner or the website owner to buy your own URL and not to leave that up to the web designer or developer to buy it, because in essence they then own the URL, and you have to. It's often very difficult to get it back. You know, if you're unhappy with their work or things like that, then it's just very, very hard.
Yeah, and you might have a falling out with that person, and they just may not want to even answer your calls. You know.
Yeah.
It's very, very complicated to get that straightened out.
Right. So this is another place where you want to own your own access. So that's a very good point. Real briefly, we're going to, you know, do just a quick tribute here, and I just wanted to share a memory that I have of Dr. Angelou, and one of the sadder points in my life, I guess. I grew up in Topeka, Kansas, which is the capital of Kansas, about an hour west of Kansas City. And when I was a teenager, Dr. Angelou came to speak. And my mom was kind of one of those moms that, you know, we weren't necessarily wealthy growing up, but she was going to make sure that we had all of these awesome experiences and opportunities to hear intellectual, influential people. I got to meet Rosa Parks. I've met her. You know, the Brown family that you know, it's from the Brown versus Board of Education. Those are actually family friends of ours. You know, so we had a lot of these people kind of coming and moving through our lives at very influential points. And so when Dr. Angelou came to visit, it was a very important day for a lot of us, and we were absolutely horrified because, you know, not Dr., but Fred Phelps picketed her speech in Topeka. And she was so, you know, she did go ahead and give the speech, but she was so outraged by what she saw and how, you know, the tenor of his, you know, just hate, that she refused to ever come back to Topeka again.
No way.
And, you know, for her to take that step, you know, we all know her as being so loving and open, you know, so for her to take that particular step was just so, it just hurt, you know what I mean? And a lot of people heard about Fred Phelps after he gained some national attention, but, you know, this was 20 years ago. that this guy was wreaking havoc in that city. So that being said, I distinctly remember sitting in this really gorgeous auditorium in Topeka and hearing her speak, and I made a comment on, I believe it was Mia Vox's stream earlier, that she doesn't speak loudly. She's not a yeller. She's got a voice that carries, but it's not loud. But she speaks, the words that she chooses are so powerful that she doesn't have to yell. She makes you want to lean in and listen because of the words that she chose, and I just think that was part of her gift. To be able to choose those words so well. And when I was reading some of her work, getting ready for the show today, and trying to pick one, which was a difficult task. And I'm always in awe by just her ability to choose the right word that carried such meaning and emphasis. It's just truly remarkable.
Yeah, I remember Bill Clinton's inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
She spoke and recited. It may have been The Caged Bird. Yeah?
No, it was a unique poem.
It was, maybe you're right. And but it just goosebumps, gave me goosebumps. And I had a poem that a little phrase I was going to read, but I've lost the citation.
It's okay. We'll sprinkle them in. There's a few comments coming in from the room, so we'll sprinkle them in throughout the show. So as we go on, we'll come back and add some more. So let's go back to our topic. So this is kind of what we're going to do. We'll bounce a little bit back and forth. Mm-hmm. Now, tell me, and I do want you to kind of run down your list, but what do you think is the most common misconception about becoming a published author? I know I led this conversation with, if you want to become a best-selling author, and I'm sure that is way harder, and there's, I'm not sure, I don't necessarily believe in luck per se, but, what would you say is the most miscomprehended thing about becoming a successful author, even if you're not on the New York Times list?
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of authors, publishers, small publishers, myself included, have put out books. They work like crazy. They get everything. It looks gorgeous. They print the book, and then they've sold to their family and friends. They've posted it on Facebook. They may or may not have a Google Plus site or a LinkedIn site, but it's, they just don't. I think planning ahead for that, and it really, even if you have a publisher who's taking care of all the printing, registration stuff for you, or a book packager, that you have to look ahead and say, you realize that you are it in terms of PR, marketing. You are the marketing department. Mm-hmm. And that is, lining that up in advance, I think, is a huge part of the process that is missed in the frenzy of getting the book ready and getting it right. So I think planning ahead for that, and experience. If you don't do it right, that's okay too. It's just you'll learn from not having done it. There are a number of publishing, PR, and marketing resources on your event page that I posted from Kitty's list, and there's a whole lot of education out there about it. Another guy on Google Plus that's good is Sean Manaher and the book marketing. What is it? Book Marketing Matters, or God, I'm sorry. Anyway, Sean Manaher, and he's really a cool guy, and has a show just after mine on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, maybe every other week.
Now,
really, a lot of resources.
And I probably make no if you know me, you probably know this already, that I'm a big fan of Guy Kawasaki, and he has a book called Ape, which is author, publisher, entrepreneur, and honestly got the downloaded version of it, not the paperback one, and I believe it's still out there. I know he's going to do Mia Voss's show later tomorrow, I think, or Friday. So if anybody wants to get a copy of his of that, I would say go there. But he makes a very good point that that it's not a linear process. First you do this, then you do that, then you do this, and then it's a lot of things that have to happen all at the same time.
Right. And if you're not good at that, then, get some help, but he's absolutely correct on that, yeah. I find his book, for me, is a little basic, but it's a good read, and I keep it handy because I always need to review the checklist, and the strategies that he lists are good. So it's a good starter book for a new publisher. Absolutely, yeah. Author, publisher, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And yeah, I coined a phrase. I think I coined it, called authorpreneur. So
yeah. I like that one. That's our hashtag for today for the show. Hashtag authorpreneur.
Authorpreneur. You come and hear it from the source. No, yeah, I mean, the cool thing about print on demand, which is just you don't have to sink a lot of money into your effort, and you can spend a little more time thinking about public relations, and you're not going to make as much per book, but it's a good way to kind of not lose your shirt while you're learning.
Which actually is a great segue into a few comments that we've had from the room. And our good friend Cheryl Deuce, hi Cheryl, how are you? Made a comment of, that she had no idea that it could cost that much to write a book. And I think, and again, why I was asking you for the misconception is that I think a lot of people think that, you go on vacation or whatever, you sit out by the pool and you type away and you type and you type and you type, and then you have this wonderful book and you send it to a publisher or a company, Random House or, one of these huge people, and they say, oh, that's great. We love it. And then they do what they do, and then you sit back and you just and you just make money. And I'm certain that is not the way that it goes. And Laura left us a message where she was watching Ryan Hanley's show, and I'm telling you, that guy and I have been on the same page a couple of times with our shows. But he was talking about crowdfunding for books, and I think that's a really interesting point, that you do see a lot of that on Kickstarter nowadays and other places. Because it is just that expensive. Not only is it the print run, but your own time. You still have to pay bills while you're writing all of this.
Well, my first book, that was in 2005, but that I published as a fundraiser for our local school system, the DayTripper, and that probably cost me $3,000, including the printing. I just, I'm a real shoestring type person, but yeah, the cost. What was my point? Crowdfunding. Yeah, we had a session on that at our annual conference for IPNY in early April, and it's an up and coming thing. I have not tried it. I have contributed to crowdfunded books, and I don't know. Maybe somebody else has more experience on it. I have not. I'm just more comfortable going the route that I'm going. I think it requires a lot of PR. A lot of crafting your message. And
in general, what I would just comment on crowdfunding. I have never crowdfunded anything. I've played with their sites a few times. We've had some nonprofits that we've worked with, and so we've kind of, I know how to set up the accounts and put the information out there. But there is a whole campaign strategy to crowdfunding. Kickstarter, whether GoFundMe. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them out there, and there really is strategic things that you have to do to crowdfund. So just like you don't write a book and just instantly become an overnight success, you don't just post on a crowdfunding site and have money start flowing in the door. It really does take strategy and effort, and there's really no shortcut.
And it takes time. It's like
it really does.
So more power to you. And there's a lot of guides out there that'll teach you, a lot of resources to teach you crowdfunding strategies. But
sure, there are lots of those, and you just will have to make a choice. If you're going to do, like what you said, a $3,000 print run, you could probably get a credit card that would do that.
Absolutely. I've used my credit card, and fortunately the book sold really well locally, so it was okay. But from Spike Lee's film financing to book publishing.
So there are other options on how to finance it. Crowdfunding is an option if you want to go that route. Again, it goes back to having a following, and crowdfunding, it really works well when you have large social media audiences. If you're in a really really small niche, like I had a guy the other day call me and want to talk about getting some consulting done, and he wrote, I think it was like a several 100-page book about this. It was the science of history or something like that, and he knew from the bat that this was not a book. It's not like Shades of Grey.
Well, you never know.
It's a very niche topic. It's a very he's got a very small audience of people that would be interested in that book, and so I not being very familiar with it, I kind of wonder, well, why are we you really want to put all of this money into hiring me to do all of this for you, but if you're not going to get the return on your book, I don't know if that's really
I mean, that's one of the points I was going to make. If you have to decide whether it's going to be a business for you or a business card, you're going to be in the publishing business where you're calculating your costs, your projected income, and your real income, or are you going to have it, you just invest in as a marketing tool? And both are perfectly legitimate and fine. Just and not knowing who's actually out there listening, I think that's one critical thing to decide first before you publish. And the other is that I really wanted to stress was the creation of an author platform. And get your expertise out there on social media, and again, simultaneously with developing your book, probably, because the direction and the focus of the book is probably going to depend on inform your platform building. And I think, for example, you are in a great position to have a book and to publish a book, and because you have people who care about you. You have people who follow you and want to know what you think about things, in particular about social media or consulting, whatever you consult about, business, business, and so there are a few people on Google Plus that I really love, and I always bring up Kathleen Colvin because she's a writer of Roman historical fiction novels about.
Yeah, you've talked about her before.
Yeah, and she's just like, she's always, every day she's posting something about Roman times, and it's intrinsically fascinating because she'll the other day it was about sandals, and she focuses in on a Roman statue with sandals, and they have soles this thick, and so she explained why that was, and so anyway, that's an example of a really good platform, and there's another science fiction writer I know of called Amy Beth Inverness, and she puts out every once in a while a science fiction question, a hypothetical question, ethical question, if you something about the future or parallel worlds or something like that. And that's part of platform building, and she gets a lot of engagement.
Well, and one thing that I think is that let me get my thoughts together. We have people that come to us and want to know, I want to write a blog. What should I write about? One of the things that we tell them is, well, what do people, when you post on social media, when you put things out there, what are people responding to? If your goal is to get traffic, then, obviously what people are, what pictures are you posting or quotes are you posting about that people are following and are drawn to? So you may be passionate to the day that you die about the history of rubber tires, but if the post that you wrote about is about the history of tires on Harley Davidson motorcycles and it just blew up, then that's what you need to write about.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, it's a delicate dance. You should try and stay focused on your passions, but if you're gonna, you try and turn the attention back to what you're producing.
Right. Well, we're kind of halfway through the show, so I wanted to bring up another few quotes. Our good friend Miss Laura Williams is helping us out in the room, and she wanted to let you know that when Maya Angelou spoke at Bill Clinton's inauguration, it was on the pulse of the morning. And that's
you,
actually
Laura.
The one that got her, well, not got her in trouble, but it's the reason why they were picketing when she came to Topeka, because there's a line in there about the hope of the gay man or something like that, and that's what fired up Reverend Phelps. But to be perfectly honest with you, he used to pick at the farmer's market. I don't know what the tomatoes ever did to him, but
maybe somebody threw some at him.
I don't know. I don't know. But so I can't really say that was the reason, because he didn't really always have to have a reason. So a couple of other fun ones. Maureen Ross, who's in the room, has a good quote. She says, "When you get, you give. When you learn, teach." And that's a very powerful. Again, just a few words, and it just hits people so hard. I mean, again, just goes to her particular prowess there. And Maureen also stated, I'm probably doing this a little bit out of sequence, that the person who influenced her so much was Dr. Jane Goodall. And I know that she was a highly influential person as well for a lot of people. Yep. So let's get back into it. I'm going to save kind of my favorite one for a little bit later. Hold on one second. I got to get this off here. But go ahead, and while I'm working on that, take us through your what's your list? How do you go from a person with an idea for a book to a person with a published book?
Right. Well, an idea for a book. Start writing it. No, actually, what I would do is go and find out. Go and research similar books out there on Amazon. Go to bookstores and find out what books are in that niche. Make it as niche oriented as you can. I mean, within reason, because that's where you will find your dedicated buyers. So, that's why people write books about Google Plus or Facebook or, LinkedIn. It's just, that people that are interested in those platforms will buy that book if it's good, and if it comes to their attention. Yeah, reality check. Realize what you're publishing the book for. I mean, book publishing can be, it's not like so severe. It's a joyful thing for me. I love it. I love developing this amorphous manuscript and putting it into lovely paragraphs and putting the gutter down so that the pages read nicely, and this comes from the Pedagogy Handbook, comes from a year-long global collaboration on, actually we've met every week on Google Plus Hangouts and put that book together as a team. So I love putting that stuff together. But my own best advice I often don't follow, because I hate writing a business plan. I hate business plans so much. They're just boring. But I'm with the help of my friend Laura Williams, who consults with me on things like this. I'm trying to I'm trying to do more bookkeeping and do more planning on cost and income projections. But yeah, and do a lot of reading. Develop your manuscript at the same time, but do a lot of reading about the business, about publishing. I think some of the resources we've listed are good, and realize that when you go to places like Lightning Source, which is a print-on-demand publisher, and CreateSpace, which is the other leading one that's owned by Amazon, that they're going to be putting out information resources that are basically spun to their own products. So, kind of do some cross-checking there. Realize that you have to market the book. Develop a marketing plan. Even if it's just 5 points in a checklist. There are plenty of free resources out there to just, Google book publicity checklist, and you'll find a lot of good ones. Come to people like, and IPNI is an affiliate of IBPA, which is the National Organization, Independent Book Publishers Association. And there's about 11 of them nationwide in the U.S. It's probably similar organizations overseas, but they're great support groups. And once you join, IPNI is $50 a year, and IBPA I think is $100, but you get $20 off if you're a member of IPNI, the regional group. You can get discounts on your setup for Lightning Source and other printers, marketing places, and just go and find those discounts. You'll get the free support and free resources through your membership, and you won't feel so alone. So, I think lining up a group like that you can go and bounce ideas off is a good idea. So, get somebody to read your manuscript. Get a book designer or a cover designer and an interior designer. Some people will do both, but make sure it's professional. And I've seen people on Google Plus do a really cool thing, which is, once they have a following, they put up a book cover or an assortment of book covers. And Mark Ensign did this. Mm-hmm. They will ask their followers to critique them, and that's a nice, that's a good way to do it if you can deal with the sort of all over the map responses. Mm-hmm. But once you have a good idea of how you want it to look, that can be helpful. And some people might spot things that you hadn't thought of.
Mm-hmm. And I know that's, and again, another one of Guy Kawasaki's tricks. Mm-hmm. And if you really kind of want to get an inside look at some of his, writing style and all of that, one of the things that he does, if you're following him on Google Plus, he will occasionally, if he's working on a new book, because he did this just recently, post it up there, invite you to read it, and then critique him. And get back to him on what you mm-hmm. thought about what he read. It's not necessarily the title, but it's an actual PDF of a new book. Right. And I think he was I think it was Engagement that he is redoing or doing a revision for, and so mm-hmm. he posted that and invited people to go back and say, hey, and he said, what did I miss? What have I not talked about that you guys want to hear about? And he got a whole ton of comments. Some people saying this is great. Some people saying you missed this point. I don't think anybody was bold enough to say I hate it.
That's a crowdsourcing your editing a little bit, and it can be helpful. I mean, the Pedagogy Handbook is it's a public domain book, and I've been kind of going more that way. I'm not quite as concerned about copyright and worried about people stealing stuff, because once you have a platform, and a name, a recognizable niche, and you're known in it, I think it would be hard to steal Guy Kawasaki's manuscript and publish it as your own. You know, it's you know what I'm saying? It's and I think the benefits are much greater by letting it get out there. And there's other things you can do for manuscript development, like do you know of Wattpad?
Never heard of it.
Wattpad, and there's not Inkblot, but it's a couple places where, or there are an increasing number of places you just upload your stuff and people pay to download it. That's how they make their money and read it. And I read a really great novel on Wattpad that they allow you the reader to comment every chapter, like what you liked or didn't like, and it was just prior to publication, so she incorporated those comments into it and published the book with that input.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I think it's a great way to do it, because then when you do that, you have like kind of it's not a pre-order. Not all those people are going to buy your books, but right. At least not brand new to them. So you kind of create your own list of people that you're going to say, hey, this book is available. Thank you so much for your comments. Yeah. Read my book, buy my book. To your comment made it into the book.
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing that you probably know is how annoying it is when you see on Twitter, free this, free book, free today, buy 99 cents, buy my book, it's available now. Nobody cares that your book was just published. Nobody cares. They care about Roman sandals, or, finding out more about how you built your consulting business. They don't care that the book is out. They see 1,000 of those notices a day. So try and avoid that, constant buy my book, buy my book, buy my book thing. Pick out something in the book that's interesting and that relates to a news story or something like that, and kind of work it in that way so that it's not just hammering people over the head with, because that will be counterproductive. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing that will set you apart from kind of the signal to noise, I think, is what I'm big about now. You've got to rise above the noise and with your own signal.
How, to change the subject just slightly, maybe I misread or I'm misquoting. Obviously, if you're going to get into Barnes and Noble, you have to have a printed book. But I had heard that it's not easy to get your book on the shelves in Barnes and Noble. Is that true?
Yes, it can be tricky. I think I'm not exactly sure. I kind of go through Lightning Source and I assume that it's available in Barnes and Noble. I haven't tracked that down yet. But it can be tricky. I know that they contacted me one time to do a reading of the local book, the one in Burlington, Mass, and of the DayTripper book. And then when I said, well, it's published, I print it directly, and they weren't interested in having me because it wasn't through a distributor that they could order from. So even if I brought the books to them, so you have to kind of figure out what distributors they buy from and how to get in there.
So real quick, we're coming up on about 15 or so minutes left. And not seeing a whole lot more of the Maya Angelou quotes in here, I'll go ahead and share the one that I posted in the room. And this is just an excerpt from I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And I think for a lot of people, this was our first exposure to Dr. Angelou was through this particular book. And but if you didn't know, she was involved in all kinds of things even prior to this. She was a singer, she was a dancer, she was doing all kinds of things in the arts before this was ever even released. So, that's one of my particularly favorite things. And I think, part of the reason why she resonates so well with women in particular is because we've all felt in some sense or another like a caged bird. And particularly with African American women and women of color, we definitely have a very strong connection with that particular phrasing. And so it's just such a powerful poem, and it's really not terribly long, but it just, again, just speaks so many volumes, and just really is a great, 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 great show.
Yeah, I can hear her voice saying it right now in my head,
Mm-hmm.
She's read it in different settings, and you can go on YouTube, I think, and hear her reading.
Yeah, and she became so familiar with Oprah, and that was kind of where, I mean, if you hadn't heard of her before, you did after Oprah.
Yeah.
Got involved with her, and I know she was even writing cards for Hallmark.
Mm-hmm.
So you could buy greeting cards with her, and I'm like, this is the best greeting card ever. Like,
yeah, exactly.
If you really want to score points on Mother's Day, send your mom a Mother's Day card with Maya Angelou inside of it, and you really tug at the heartstrings there.
Yeah, I think she was a real unifier, of people, connector.
She really was. She was an absolutely amazing lady. I had heard that her health was failing, and unfortunately, once you get to be at that age, it's harder and harder to bounce back from infections and things like that. So.
I just heard it when I was at the counter at CVS this morning, and we all started talking about her. Just strangers.
Well, it's amazing. And then one thing that I would just leave the group with, and I don't want to soapbox here, but all of us have these people in a lot of us do, that are older than us, that are just absolute gems if you just sit and talk to them and get that information from them. I'm absolutely blessed that I have a complete set of living grandparents. Wow. My grandfather is 95. He turned 95 in April, and my grandmother is 92. 93.
Yeah, cherish those people. Oh my God, that is great. Where are they living?
They live in Wichita, Kansas, which is just north of Oklahoma. And they are, when my grandfather has Alzheimer's, and so his memory is not as sharp, but my grandmother is sharp as a tack. And it's hilarious to hear the two of them talk about their lives and things that they've experienced, because he's got his version and she has her version.
Yeah, well, when I think my husband and I have been married almost 25 years or 23 years, and it just seems like a long time to me. And then when you think of someone like that's been married maybe 65 years.
They had their 68th wedding anniversary just
Oh my God. Yeah, that's honor the older people. It makes your life richer.
Absolutely. So I would certainly encourage people out there, you may not have a Maya Angelou in your family, but you have these gems of people that if you just sit and spend the time with and, really get to know, that they just enrich your life so much. So I certainly would encourage people to do that. But let's move on. We'll bring the energy level back up just a little bit. What are some of your favorite books? Let's take that angle.
My favorite books?
Yes.
Oh my God, I like. Actually, it was just, I don't know why I thought of this, but the Just So stories from Rudyard Kipling. I like a lot. I like a lot of the books that I grew up with. Margaret Atwood. I love her books as far as fiction. And Barbara Kingsolver, I'm reading Flight Behavior right now, and I'm also reading Essential Sculling, which is my new passion.
Oh yes, you were telling me about that.
Yeah, I just got, gotten to the point where it's really, really fun now, and we're down here on the Charles River. That's where we go. So I've read, Sarah Hall wrote a book about sculling. She took up sculling at the age of 43 when she was kind of in the throes of a really bad marriage, and it saved her life. She says, you know, she became a women's masters champion, world champion.
Wow.
It's a fabulous book, even if you're not into sculling, because it's about a journey, you know, finding your inner strength, basically. I try and read a lot of fiction if I can. You know, I think my professional reading is kind of in bits and chunks online and more, and I have some resource books, but I just like anymore. It seems like nonfiction professional books go out of date so fast. You know,
they can.
Yeah, they can. And
yeah.
So, yeah. What about you?
Gosh, I have a lot of favorite books. I love to read. I can remember as a kid, I was a big fan of Roald Dahl, you know, with Matilda and all of that. There was a book that I can't remember who wrote it, but it's a children's story. It's called Where the Red Fern Grows. I'll have to post a link to it. I got to get my son to read that one. He's 7 years old and can just read anything.
So he's a good reader, huh?
He loves to read. He started reading at around 3.5, believe it or not.
Whoa.
Most people don't believe me, but you know, my mother, he used to read to my mom when we would go visit.
My dad taught me to read when I was 4, so I took it up way early, and I was writing poetry and stuff when I was young. So I've always been involved with language and books and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think as an adult, you know what's honestly, I'm such a nerd. I do read a lot of business books, and I like it. What can I say? But when I was in college, in my graduate school program, they required us all to read The Goal, which is a business fable that is written by this guy. It's not his full name, but everyone calls him Eli Goldratt. I believe he's from Israel, so his first name is a bit long and has quite a few vowels. And it is a really, really neat business fable, and it teaches a business lesson through a fictional story. And I just thought that was so cool, and it was such a neat way to give business advice and share business strategy in a way that's much more palatable. You know, nobody likes to just sit and read, you know, business strategy in a book.
Yeah,
it's very boring.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I'm going to look that one up, because I like that approach to things. Kind of takes it from a different angle. It's not a didactic, but it's kind of
right.
You.
And there's been a recent author that I really, really enjoy, and his name is Patrick Lencioni, and he writes business fables also. You know, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Getting Naked. There's a whole bunch of them that he's done, and it's that same style. And I really liked them because, you know, they were the perfect book to get if you had a flight that was going to be more than about 2 or 3 hours.
Right.
You could. It was an easy read. The fictional storyline made you want to keep reading. So without even really working hard, you're absorbing this business strategy and this way of approaching business. And you know, he's Death by Meeting is one that's really good that I really, really liked. You know, so it's just a different approach to writing, and I know if I ever wrote a business book, that would probably be the style I would try to go after.
You should do a Camel Jacket chat with a bunch of business authors. That'd be cool.
That would be fun. That would be fun. I know Patrick has a group, is a consultant, and has a group called the Table Group, and they do, I don't think they do HOAs, but I know they have a webinar series that they were putting out recently too. So if anybody wants to follow him, I would say give him.
Yeah, that's a cool thing about Twitter and Google Plus. You know, you can find these authors and actually interact with them. You know, you can, you know, that's.
Yeah. He's awesome, so that's a good one. Well, we're down to the last 5 minutes or so of the show. What do we need to know about Charlotte Pierce that we do not already know?
Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm a kind of a I'm a sort of a bootstrapper entrepreneur type. I was born on a farm in eastern Washington State. You know, born at home, and we raised our own vegetables and animals when I was growing up, for the most part. So I kind of saw how things were produced, and I think that's what informs my publishing. I've sort of transferred that. You know, I like to see the process. I like the process. So I could say that was in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is cool. So where can we find more of you? We know you're here on Google+. Where else can we find you?
Well, thanks to Laura Williams and my friend Tanya Gold, I have now a working WordPress site at piercepress.com. Yay! I know, it's so fun. I love WordPress. Do you use it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The majority of the websites that we build are WordPress sites.
Yeah, when you get it, you get it. You know, it's just like so easy and fun. So we use it on Pedagogy. So I'm an editor on that site, and we have a kind of communal editing thing there. But piercepress.com is my site. Pedagogy.org is the Pedagogy handbook, and that'll get you to anything you need to know. I think I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.
Awesome. Well, just a few last little comments from the room. I want to make sure our good friend Luis Garas.
Hey, Luis.
Hey,
¿Cómo estás?
He wanted to tell us very nice hangout. So we love Luis. He's actually up here in our area and was at Eric Enga's Hurl a few weeks ago. And I know we're hurling again in June, so I'm looking forward to seeing him.
That's HIRL.
Yes. When I first heard that, I was like, what are these people getting together?
I know. Yeah.
Like, is this some kind of twisted thing? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, like, if anybody listening wants to contact me, I love helping people get started in publishing, so please, do so.
Absolutely, and I know I plan on adding you to my regular list as I start thinking about what we're doing. And then the last one I wanted to put up just real quick from our good friend Laura. She says your hair looks awesome. HOA hot.
Oh, you're sweet, Laura. Thank you. I think I'm going to go to Mali every day before I have my hangouts.
And I noticed Laura did not say anything about my hair. My feelings are really hurt. You are dead to me, Laura.
You're toast, Laura. Oh.
Totally.
This is really fun, Carmen. I love your show, and I love talking with you. It helps me sort of explore my own ideas too. So.
Great. And I'm one of the, I also like talking to people. One of the, I think the misconceptions about consultants is that we're all after money. So I honestly just love hearing other people's ideas because it really does help me fine tune my own. And I'll go, I never thought about it that way, and it broadens my own horizons as I think about things and work with our clients. I'm one of those consultants that we may have an hour-long meeting. But I'm going to be there for a couple of hours, and we're going to talk.
And then you're probably going to be thinking about their issue at night. You just not like you shut it off. I do a lot of value for their money.
Yeah, I've had to tell people. I ran track in college and briefly thereafter. I've got 2 children. I'm a Navy wife. I never needed help going to sleep until I became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, what am I going to do? Yeah.
I never started taking I take melatonin, which is not really a sleep supplement, but it kind of helps regulate your circadian rhythms.
Well, I get cranky if I can't row in a given day or walk my dog or something. I get cranky. It's crazy.
Yeah, when I don't, I work out. I go to the gym. I don't run as much as I used to because my body just can't take the pounding. But if it's been a couple of days, schedules haven't worked out, kids are sick, or we're traveling or something, and I can't get to a gym, my husband will vouch for it. I become very anxious. And
okay, Carmen, it's time to go out now.
Right. He's going, you need to go to the gym, please.
Right. Well, thank you again. It's been great.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and so we are going to sign off. Thank you, everyone. Join us next week for the Camel Jacket Chat. We are going to go back and pick up one of the guests that we had to reschedule before. My good friend Dana Durrell will be joining us next week for the Camel Jacket Chat, and she is an attorney, and so we are going to be talking about all those legal issues that entrepreneurs need to know. So, again, when you're talking about writing a book, being able to read contracts and kind of the fine print and all of that fun stuff, stuff. She's going to spend an hour with us talking about those landmines and pitfalls that often snag entrepreneurs in a legal sense. So look out for that invitation. That will be coming out in the next few days. And I look forward to seeing everybody next week on the Camel Jacket Chat.